Don't say I didn't warn you.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen monsters. I am your host, Immortal Brando, and I am joined here today by my fabulous guests. We're going to discuss horror movie remakes and reboots. Let's start from the top. Renegade, if you could talk, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm a dying corpse and I'm about to talk about horror movies. If I sound like I'm 6 feet under, is because I really don't feel that well, but I'm gonna power through and see if I can give my knowledge on this.
All right. Divik, my man.
Yeah. Talking about movies this time instead of talking shit about video games, so feels good.
Yeah, it's something new, something different, you know? Yeah. All right, and CuddleTom, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Tom. Been a horror fan for a long time. Glad to give my input on this.
All right. And to start things off, I forgot to open it. Right, dog. Question number one.
Damn, you didn't even let me introduce myself, Randall.
Oh, hey, Drill. You were quiet over there. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Drobin, and I'm pretty excited about this today, even though I feel like Brando purposely skipped me.
I don't know who you are, sir.
Sure.
All right, let's start this off. Let's see. Start off with discussion about horror movies remakes. What's your initial thoughts on the notions of horror movie remakes and reboots?
I guess I could start off.
Right.
I mean, I don't mind them remaking stuff if they actually do something new and different, as long as it's not just shot for shot. Like, I mean, we remember like the Fly movie in the 80s, that's a remake, and more people remember that. And both films are completely different. Like
same thing happened with I think The Thing, with John Carpenter. Like more people remember that over the original source material that was based on.
Yeah, The Thing from Another World, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's nice to have two films that are at least different from each other, because at least you can appreciate them for different reasons. And then compared to something like Psycho in like the 90s, I think, where it's just shot for shot, it even uses like the same music.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, honestly, as for rebooting stuff, I mean, I don't mind them rebooting stuff if there's like a good reason, like if they just write themselves into a corner. Like with Halloween, like they had so many crappy sequels that there was probably no way they could follow up with it, so they had to just start over, or at least just erase everything.
Well, in fairness, though, they started over like 3 times. Of course, you have the original set with the number set, and then you have Halloween H2O, which is a sequel to the Halloween 2, and then Resurrection. And then you got Rob Zombie's verse, and then now you have the new John Carpenter verse, which is a direct sequel to the first movie, ironically called Halloween.
Yeah, which that kind of irked me, but that's probably another question, so I'll save it for that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, to get my thoughts on this though, but I'm fine with reboots and remakes. I'm gonna look at the same logic that I do for video game reboots and remakes. So long as it's done right and the timing is right. Because certain things don't need a reboot unless that series has been dormant for X amount of years, or it actually really needs one. Because either the series rolls up to the corner, too much of bad sequels, or there's nothing else they can do with it or want to do with it for that continuity. So just start over. No, that's for reboots. For remakes, I'm fine with them, but it's just like video games though. I want them to be as faithful as possible while adding something new, adding new flavor to it. A good example is My Bloody Valentine, the remake that came out back in 2013, I believe, 2012, something like that.
2014, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so that movie itself was a really damn good remake of the
It was
original.
2009. My bad.
2009. Wow, that's old. So yeah, like that was a good movie, a good remake of the original, while also changing things up and adding some new stuff to it, while of course changing the setting, given the movie took place in like the 80s, 70s, something like that. So I'm
Yeah.
all for. I'm fine for remakes and reboots so long as it's done right and has at least a good foundation and has a good reason for having a reboot and or remake.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. They need to have a good reason to do it, not just a cash grab or, you know, we've seen too many of those movies.
Exactly. In fact, the most recent one I could think of is the Wrong Turn franchise. They rebooted it into the new one called the Foundation. Now, the movie itself is actually not bad though, but the formula, ironically, the foundation of Wrong Turn does not exist in this new reboot. It's just a completely new slate. Makes you wonder why reboot it. Just make it a sequel to the Okai Noji. Just have a different premise. Like there's no reason
Yeah.
for them to reboot the old series. Now,
I
granted,
feel
the movie
like
sucked, but still.
I feel like it probably could have just been its own film, but they kind of they put the title on there just to attract old fans.
Most likely. Anyone else want to go for question one?
I mean, my whole thing with like reboots and stuff is they can be pretty neat. There's a lot of remakes like that have already been mentioned that surpass kind of the original. And then you have weird situations where I think something like Funny Games. I think Funny Games was done by the same director about like 20 or 30 years apart. He just wanted another crack at making the movie. Kind of goes into what everybody else was saying is like different perspective, kind of a different look, a different focus, or a different way of shooting it. Almost like a different genre. When and yeah, like you when you don't do something like that, you get something like the Psycho remake, which that's kind of has its own merits for its own like weird exactness that it has the original film. But remakes, reboots, I mean, at the worst you can get with something being rebooted, if it's something really beloved too, is like, oh man, that sucks, but at least I still have the original. That's kind of the way I look at it.
That's honestly the best way to look at things because like if it sucks, it's still there. Like especially if it holds up pretty damn well, even by like 2021 standards, right?
Yeah.
Like just go and enjoy that.
Yeah, like the Thing remake that came out, which was the second one, not the first one, the sequel, reboot, remake, whatever.
It's a prequel, actually.
Yeah, prequel, sequel, cash cow,
But
whatever.
with the same name, really
yeah,
enough.
They got CGI and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. The intention was a reboot, but yeah, it is a prequel.
Yeah, but with the CGI stuff, that was kind of out of their control because they were forced to do
Agreed.
it.
No, agreed.
Yeah, but the point is like the quality of it is not as good as the original.
Yeah, and the thing
Yeah.
is like that movie ended up being terrible. So I was like, okay, well that sucks, but hey, at least I still have the Thing 1986.
Yeah. Also, like we got other movies like the Black Christmas, subsequent remakes. The most recent one's easily the worst one we had.
Oh,
then-
wait, the 2019 one?
Yes, the one that I regret watching.
Yeah.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers is another example where you have about 3 or 4 different remakes of the original movie anyway, and they're all in varying quality. So it's kind of like, well, at least I have this version, kind of a thing.
Mhm. Yeah, or like say, look at Chainsaw Massacre films. Like personally, I am not a fan of those movies, but I did enjoy the origin and the remake of the first movie a lot.
Yeah,
I think those were more up my alley than the original ones. So like, different strokes for everyone out there. Anyone else want to go? Renegade?
Yeah, so my initial thoughts on this notion is that I am kind of divided. I feel mostly the same as you guys. Like, I don't mind the idea of someone taking an older concept and recontextualizing it for the modern ages and doing different things and trying to do something unique with it. At the same time, it really depends on how it's done. Mostly horror movie remakes, they have this quality stigma behind them of Hollywood just doing them for brand recognition and constantly pumping them out. Personally, I think that the main thing they should be doing is trying to go for either better quality or trying to do these things where it's interesting new takes on the genre that's never been seen before. That's why there are some of them that are really, really good, and there are others where it's clearly like, The Grudge 2020 that really didn't need to exist, and it was lower quality than the original movie.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about it mostly. Trying to swat a fly next to me, but you get the idea. I think that they can be done right in certain instances, and then other instances they are done where it's clearly just for the money. And I think the worst part, like Dro mentioned, was, well, I think someone mentioned it, studio interference once they took someone's idea and butchered it, and they had no choice. But clearly, it was a lesser movie than the original.
All right, well said. Well, we have a new challenger.
All right.
Aaliyah Love. Come introduce yourself, Madam, if you can talk.
Mispronounced that name again. All right.
On purpose.
All right. Maybe she can't talk right now, so who knows?
Well,
My silly
that's
thing is being
unfortunate.
silly.
There we go.
Oh, okay. There she is.
I'm Aaliyah Love, or as mentioned on the last podcast, go watch it. I am a former horrorcore industry person. I also do Asian music, journalism, and graphic design and all that fun stuff. And I'm a huge horror nerd. So, hi.
Nerds, I swear.
Shit. At least I'm not a wannabe, what was it last week? You said Blackanese?
Okay then. Clearly I have bad influence. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, Aaliyah, you want to go on the first question with number one and what you think about horror movie remakes in general in terms of like the idea and how you were introduced to them?
So mine was the Night of the Living Dead remake was actually my first one that I recognized as a remake. And then I also watched the English version of the Toy Box horror movie, which we don't talk about that one. The original Japanese and European versions of Toy Box are much, much better. And so it's very 50-50. Many times studios just turn them out and just throw them into theaters just to make some money because people are wanting a sequel or something. We see that a lot with the Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees movies. So sometimes they can be really good, but then sometimes they can just be shoved into theaters and be money grabs that are total pissing contests. Excuse the analogy there, but sometimes it really feels like it's a pissing contest. Oh, this person put out a remake of this horror movie, so we have to put out a remake of our horror movie. No, you don't, but okay.
Okay.
Anyone else want to chime in on this? No.
Going once, going twice. All right, sold to the person cut in half.
All right.
Number two. I can read this one enough. How do you feel about the idea of you cannot remake or reboot a horror movie franchise that is already perfect? Honestly, though, I don't necessarily agree with that notion because, well, nothing will last forever. Nothing will age well. Like, you can have the best movie franchise in the world, right? But if it's aged by, like, say, 20 or 30 years old, it doesn't look good, for whatever reason it may be, though. I think maybe you could just maybe reboot it. But again, it's like you need the right people in the right hands to actually, like, recreate something that was already good or perfect, I like people say, you know?
Yeah.
Like, nothing is like cannot be touched forever, though. I feel like, no, eventually, like, it should be retouched to get a new, well, I should say new audience, just reinvigorate the brand in question.
I will say the most recent one where they've actually like done it really well and reinvigorate the fandom was the remake of The Ring recently, which The Ring isn't even that old of a movie, but they remade that and it actually turned out pretty well. So I think, if done right, there is absolutely nothing wrong with rebooting a so-called perfect franchise. I do see a lot of horror movie elitists, especially interacting with us on Twitter, and it's kind of just like, that's no. I could have nothing but love for the original, but I will still get hyped when they do announce a remake because that means new fans are coming into the series. And even if the remake is absolute dog crap, which it happens a lot of times, there still are people that'll come to see it. And like with House of Wax, even though the House of Wax remake wasn't very favorable for some people. People did go watch the original one, and heck, they even included the original movie on the Blu-ray release of the remake of House of Wax. So, it's kind of one of those things where the perfect series being rebooted can be a really good thing.
How
Yeah.
dare you?
there
Paris
a
Hilton
series?
really tried in that movie.
I actually have a side question though. Once we're done here, so you guys go ahead. I'm Devik.
Oh yeah, no, I was saying, how dare you? Paris Hilton tried her hardest. Damn it.
Okay.
She was no. No, I agree with the sentiment. Like there is nothing that is perfect. I mean, I'm the old man in the Discord. I'm the one that's always saying like, oh, Dead Space remake, blah, and yelling at the kids on my lawn kind of a thing. But like there really is nothing that is perfect, and there really is generational gaps of films. It's hard to watch some older stuff. I can get that. I don't expect people to watch something like Possession, for example, like the original version of it, because it's a slow movie and it's very hard to get into. I like it because I grew up in an era where I watched that kind of stuff. It
Yeah.
may not jive with other people. The same thing kind of goes for, and this is blasphemous, but like same thing kind of goes with The Thing. The Thing opens very slow. It's a very 70s, 80s movie. It's got a very particular style to it. So I get why people wanted to try to bring it into the modern era. It wasn't a successful way of bringing it into the modern era, but I think if the right director comes along, the right people come along, you can make a great product. I know it's not a horror movie, but Blade Runner is one of the best things that I think has ever happened. And I never thought that there could be a sequel or remake to that movie. And I was proven wrong, and I was happy I was proven wrong. But, at the end of the day, if it's bad, if it's terrible, it gets people introduced to it. And maybe they'll go, hey, you know what? That was a really bad, the Thing was really terrible. You know what? I really want to see that John Carpenter version, see how it holds up. Like getting just a couple people to do that, I think that's kind of worth it.
Yeah. Plus, the word perfect is strongly subjective because, like, for me, like, while considered perfect is that even with its flaws, it's not enough to kill the enjoyment of said product. That's my definition of it. So everybody's going to be different with that.
Yeah, I feel like people are very just when they like something a lot and the studio decides to remake it, there is that reservation of, okay, I really like this product. I don't want them to mess this up. So I think that's the initial criticism. However, it's not like they can't remake it and make some aspects like really good. There's a lot of horror movies out there where I really enjoyed what the remake tried to accomplish. Like, take a look at Dawn of the Dead, for example. The Dawn of the Dead remake, they made significant changes to the zombies and how they act and run. And there are people out there saying, well, I don't like running zombies. It's not thrilling to me. It's not entertaining. And in my opinion, I'm like, that's probably the most menacing fucking thing they could have done in the past couple of years with that genre, making zombies even more intimidating than they were before. So it's all like different strokes. I think you can take something that was already good and expand upon it. That's probably the main goal, to see how remakes are turned out. At the same time, I do feel like there is a lot of restraint with how Hollywood tends to put things in the ground and not allow creators to do certain things, and overall that could probably kill a movie. Either way, I'm excited for it. It's like Alita said, she said that there were new audiences getting into these movies, and that brings more money and that brings more attention. Even if it's good or bad, sometimes that could be a win-win for the franchise in general. The only thing that's highly subjective is if the movie is really good or not, and that's just all opinionated at the end of the day.
Yeah, of course, but of course you're going to have you're going to have objectively bad movies, like just pure
Absolutely.
quality on its own.
Absolutely,
It's noticeable.
you're gonna have the lesser quality remakes and the lesser quality films in general that really didn't do better than the first one. I guess that's where the sort of reservation lies in the fan base. Can they do this more superior than the first one? And there's gonna be that constant comparison. However, at the same time, there is those people that do enjoy these remakes. I know some people that can't even go back and watch like black and white movies. Like, the original Thing apparently was like black and white and called something else. Like, Thing from Another Planet.
World.
Yeah, Thing from Another World.
Yeah, and it was a big plant monster, is what it was. It was like a very Boris Karloff kind of dude in a suit. It's pretty funny.
And I want to mention this, like, some people just are like, I can't relate to this generation. Sure, they probably made good movies for people back then, but I can't personally watch it because I feel like this doesn't appeal to me, and that's fine. I feel like if someone is willing to go back and retroactively say, hey, this was cool, maybe I want to go back and check something out in the past, or hey, maybe this wasn't for me in the past, I'll stick to this and this is cool for my generation, that's totally fine. I think it's not related to this topic, but I think James Gunn mentioned that Jaws, he didn't see that in theaters. That was like a little bit before his time, and he said, well, that movie was so great that the recognition made me go back in the past and watch it anyway, and the theaters really didn't define if I loved that movie or not. I just watched it on my own. Turned out I liked it. It was a great shark horror movie, and that was it. So I think the same can apply for remakes in that situation.
Yeah, for sure. Now, anyone else? Got any insight on this question?
Which question was it?
Question
Or
2.
number 2. You got a document open?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it just depends on the film.
Mhm.
I don't think anything's not. I mean, I don't really think everything's like not untouchable.
There's going to be a flaw somewhere. I mean, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of a perfect series.
Like, you could say close to perfect or maybe like excellent, good enough to recommend, but in terms of perfection, there's always like something, especially with those movies that didn't age well. You really start to see like how the movie doesn't look all that great compared to movies now, and how certain things just sort of stand out, or mistakes were made, like Evil Dead with the boom mics and everything. And they probably don't have that problem with the remake, for example. So
yeah, mainly because the Evil Dead was kind of low budget.
Yeah, so well, mostly low budget. I mean, they made that on a shoestring, but still.
Yeah, which is a bunch of college students who made it.
Yep.
I mean, on the other hand, though, Saw was made on an incredibly low budget originally, and somehow that actually still stands up today, especially compared to the newer supposed remakes that they've had out of Saw that are no longer sequels.
Well, with Saw's case, though, like the way that movie was made was different from, say, Evil Dead, because Evil Dead was shot in like multiple areas in the woods and whatnot, and how his camera's action was dynamic and whatnot. Versus Saw, like literally most of the movie took place in one room. And you have your few exception areas, which you don't see much of. You just see, quick shots, go on to the next scene, and be done with it. So it was just always on how you make the film, really. And what you have to work with. That's my assumption.
As far as movies that don't hold up well, that got a remake, Exorcist. Oh my gosh. Look back at that and it hurts. I used to love it, and now I watch it again, watch it again now with friends who've never watched the original, and they point out stuff that I never noticed because I had those rose tinted glasses on, and then I'm like, oh, this is bad.
Ironic, that's how I feel about the first Evil Dead movie. I'm like, it's not, a bad movie based on what it is. It's just like it's hard to watch it considering how its quality is comparison to, like, say, later movies.
Well, we're in luck because they're also remaking The Exorcist as well.
Well, isn't it a sequel though?
Well, yeah, I don't know how David Gordon Green, is that his name or whatever? I don't know how he does it. It's like they're sort of retooling the franchise, but they're sequels. This happened with Halloween, except he went back and decided, hey, everything after Halloween 1, that never happened. So it's kind of weird, like, the way he does movies. I don't know what you would call that, to be honest.
He likes to mess with the timeline more than Marvel.
I guess retcon.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I was going to say one more thing on this before we move on, or just while it's fresh in my head. Sorry. I used to be a guy that was very purist with horror movies and just film in general. Like, if you didn't watch the classics, like things like Citizen Kane, or you didn't appreciate things like Singing in the Rain, or what I mean, like the really big staples, it would be like horrifying to younger me. But like as I've gotten older and I've rewatched some of that stuff, I get it. I get that. I don't know if it's a combination of attention span or what have you, whatever the reason is. Like I get why people do not want exactly. Yeah, I'm yeah, basically, yeah, boomer thoughts for a very long time up until recently, where it's just like, if you don't like the original, Last House on the Left, yeah, fuck it, all right, whatever. Like, I can't, I'm gonna like it, but I can't force somebody to like something. So
Yeah, and I get that. I have a friend who actually was like for a long time like that, and he still watches the originals and stuff. But ironically, the series that got him to break from that mindset was, of all things, Paranormal Activity, which I can't watch it. I hate those movies. But he's like, no, no, come watch it. And then he started watching like remakes and stuff and giving them a chance. And I'm like, dude, of all the movies, man, to break you of that, why?
Yeah, for sure. I guess we can move on though, but I actually have a side question.
All right.
Do you guys think that the fandoms can make or break a remake's reception or reboot reception?
Yes.
yep.
We saw that
Do you
with
have
the sequel to Conjuring recently. It's kind of did good in some countries, but for the most part, it bombed because people were still mad that they remade it in the first place.
I also feel like there's a bit that you have to account for, because like when and I'm pulling a non-horror movie here to just for a fan base demonstration, but like you look at Watchmen and all the people that were like, oh yeah, I'm so excited for this, blah blah blah, you get that opposite
Yes.
effect where people are getting in on it and they don't really know what they're talking about or really kind of have an idea. They're just like, it's the whole FOMO effect, and then the movie comes out and it makes no money. So both of these things are bad.
Yeah, because if they don't support it, but they say they loved it, then it's like, what is the point of even continuing on from there? Because most people, like I would say 99.9% of producers, when they make these sort of remakes or whatever, they're thinking about continuations or ways to spin it where we want to continue on, maybe like a remake sequel or reboot sequel. How do we do this? So they're looking at that specifically.
Yeah. No, the reason why I ask is because sometimes a movie can actually be a remake or a reboot, whatever, can actually be good. It's just it doesn't get the love it deserves until maybe years later. That might be exaggeration though, but in a lot of cases it's true.
I think
I was
also
wondering.
I think also horror movies, they have that sort of original stigma of cult classics. Like maybe people don't like it in theaters, but later on they start to appreciate it a little more. That can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's what happened with the Thing remake. Is it was panned. I remember Roger Ebert, and you can look it up online, was slamming the movie, as was every critic at the time. And I think it was released in the same week E.T. came out. So like having really nice cuddly alien with blood splatter, rip your chest open alien was kind of like not good for everybody.
Yeah. That was actually the reason why I want to ask that question though, because like you said, that movie was not well received, by a good general audience, and like you mentioned, some of the reviews destroyed that movie, right? Then you fast forward like 10, 20, 30 question mark years, and then like it became a cult classic and everybody loved it, and then of course you got your prequel remake type thing, and it's out. Then that regenerated like interest in the movie. So yeah, like stuff like that happens, and it's quite incredible, I must say. But I guess we can move on to question number 3. Hey, Brian, can you read that off?
Sure, no problem. And let's see. I have to get the document. My bad. What are some things that can mostly go wrong with horror movie remakes or reboots, in your opinion? Cite your criticism.
Oh, this is probably the most obvious one. I will say age rating, because you know that movie Prom Night.
Oh my
The
god, I completely
the new
forgot
one
about
or
it.
the old one?
the new one.
I
Yeah,
have
I'm
the
talking
new one
about
on my
age
shelf.
rating. Yeah, the new one is freaking PG-13, while the original was R rating, I believe, right?
Yep.
And it's quite noticeable because all the kills were like cutaways.
And then
Yeah,
they released the rated R version with extended scenes when they released the DVD and Blu-ray, which made no sense.
But yeah, what's kind of ironic is that the original Prom Night was going to be PG, so they added in more gore because they thought nobody would watch a PG-rated horror film.
Well, and if I remember when Prom Night came out, was it Prom Night was 70s or
80s? I think.
It was 80s.
Early
Okay,
80s.
because I can't remember if the PG-13 rating had been established at that point. Because
It
like,
was after Indiana Jones.
yeah, it was
and
after Temple of
Gremlins.
Doom, right? Okay. Because remember, PG used to be like Jaws is PG, so like there's a pretty huge gap between what a PG movie is and what an R movie is. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Is like
Yeah, later in the 80s, they established NC-17 for things that were, rated R, but a little too much for people that were, around that age for the R ratings. The ratings are really confusing. And then they established PG-13 as well.
But yeah, the first PG-13 was in 1983 with Red Dawn.
Which, that is another remake we could have discussions about.
Well, 1984, actually. My bad.
I have not seen that movie. I've never heard of it to now. So, oops.
Go Wolverines.
But yeah, usually they just do that so they can just get younger audiences in the theater and then just sell the uncut version later.
Because it's all about that box office. And if you look at the remake of Prom Night, it actually did really well box office wise because there were so many teenagers going, hee hee, I get to go see a horror movie.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it really good, but it does work from a marketing perspective because they get more butts and seats. And generally, teenagers are the general audience that goes to movie theaters because it's considered one of the rare places that they can actually go on dates without their parents going and freaking out.
Yeah, I didn't have a car, so it was the only place I could, make out with all those girls I made out with. I mean, yeah, that.
Well, when I worked the movie theater in middle school, people did a lot more than kiss, and we're not going to get into that.
Well, then.
Look, this is not a real life horror movie, all right? It's not.
You can find all that on Pornhub. Don't worry.
It's gross. I'm just saying that's generally where teenagers go to hide and.
To get white stuff? Okay, cool. Anyway.
Oh my god. It's ectoplasm. It's from a ghost.
Yeah, right.
It's a haunting. I agree with the PG-13 sentiment. Yeah, it is to get butts and seats, right? It's lowest common denominator. You get those people off the fence that won't watch a hard R. And while you can still make a really good horror movie or horror movie remake even without hitting that hard R, it's if your original content is something like The Evil Dead, where people's heads are popping off and people are getting their skulls ripped open or whatever, and you tame that way down, it's a disservice kind of the original, and it just the product becomes what it is. It's a product, right?
That's where I stand as well. Like your original one was clearly not meant for a PG-13 audience, though. So why dumb it down? Because that's why I don't like PG-13 horror movies, at least non-original ones, because some of them are actually pretty good. This one I watched some time ago. I forgot what the name is called though, but there's a scene where a kid gets killed by a scarecrow and he turns it into one. That movie is PG though, but it was pretty graphic, non-gory PG
I
effects.
think you're talking about Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yes, that was it.
It was PG-13 actually.
Yeah. It was PG-13 though, but it was quite explicit without showing blood and gore, which is I think it's pretty cool. But when you have
I was gonna say another one that successfully did that was Trick or Treat. Actually, somehow that was originally rated PG-13 and made it in theaters, and I don't know how the heck they got away with that.
Yeah,
also,
right? That movie, the way I remember it, is not PG-13.
It's R-rated.
I was going to say, there's a little bit more exposure than what you would expect for PG-13. I don't know who they sucked up to get that rating originally.
All
right.
Yeah, because when it came out on DVD, the rating was changed from what it was on the poster, and I'm like, I mean, yeah.
I also feel like a remake focusing on the wrong things kind of really can kill something. Like you know, from the people that I interact with on the Discord, a lot of people know that I'm the kind of guy that's like, I like the simple concept of something like Alien or Jaws. Like, when you expand on that concept, that's when it starts to get boring and uninteresting. So like,
Unnecessary.
yeah, like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, which aren't strictly remakes, but like the latter half of Alien Covenant is basically a remake.
Oh my god.
It's just, it's not, I don't care. It doesn't, I don't care. It's not interesting. It makes it boring. If anything, I don't care about the black goo or the engineers or explaining the space jockey. Like, give me simple concept and run with it.
Or Tremors, when they remade Tremors recently
Oh
after
my
they stopped
God.
doing sequels, and they went into like an hour and a half of like monologuing about the history, and I'm like,
Hurts
if
my
we're
soul.
here watching this trashy remake, we've already watched the other ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do definitely agree with that. But I guess one thing I could say that I'm neutral on is them changing the concept of the original. Like, let's take Nightmare on Elm Street, and I guess maybe Friday the 13th, the remake. For Nightmare, Freddy went from a child killer to a child molester. You know, that didn't sit well with the fandom. Now, personally, I didn't care per se because both are still bad. You know, it still involved kids in some capacity, as fucked up as that sound. But a lot of the fandom did not care about that, and that was one of the reasons why the movie was critically panned by both critics and general audience.
I feel like in that case, they were just being extreme for this case for like the just to be extreme, if that makes sense. Like there was no reason to make that change whatsoever. I feel like somebody was just bored in the boardroom and was like, you know what? Let's make them a molester instead.
The thing is, the molester thing was there from the beginning. If you look at how he acted with Nancy, I'm your boyfriend, and then the phone turning into the tongue thing, that's the subtext has always been there, and I think they just kind of pushed it back for the original series just because it was, you know, it was 1984. Maybe audiences weren't quite ready for that.
Well, and interestingly enough, the subtext is what makes it interesting, is because you can make these assumptions about
Yeah.
Freddy, that he's a molester, he's a pervert, he's a weirdo, whatever. But then when you just come to the audiences and go, he's a child molester, it's kind of like, oh, all right. I mean, we kind of already knew that. You didn't need to scream it in my face.
Well, Wes Craven wanted him to be one, but I think because of something that was going on at the time, he went against it because I think he thought it was in poor taste.
I also just realized that I screamed that in my apartment, so I apologize.
Well, we also got to take into account, and this does kind of go into that subcontext and that blurry line of if they should have changed it or not. You got to think, when the original film came out, like that was around the time the peak of like massive amounts of teenagers being kidnapped and shit really kind of blew up back then. So I can kind of see why he would change it if that was his original intention, because especially with a rise and things like that happening, that kind of makes the, you know, world a little uneasy.
I think a big part of the problem was that by the time the remake came out, Freddy was a hero. People liked him. And then to have him turned into a molester, well, you can't cheer for him now. So, yeah, of course people got mad.
Yeah, and I still have the figure from right before the remake, one of the earlier pop figurines of him, like from that era where he was considered a hero. And then the remake came out, and I remember a lot of people, like you said, just straight up throwing out their merch and stuff because they were like, okay, no, I'm good, bye. And especially when you make that much build up, like you said, to turning them from being what they originally were as a character into, like you said, a hero of sorts, that kind of throws off everybody.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Ring, anything else said?
No, I think you guys pretty much covered what was on my mind. The only thing I don't like is when some of these remakes and reboots that they do, they're like lesser than with the story and lore and characters and all that stuff, because I mean, I think Nightmare is a great example. Jackie Early definitely tried, but I think that he was not as great as Robert because there are those expectations going into a remake where can this thing or this icon live up to the original? And I remember people were saying that about Chucky as well. They didn't like the whole robot idea. They weren't all for it. I know there are some diehard people that really enjoyed that reboot. At the same time, you know, Mark Hamill was great and all that stuff, but I think some people mostly prefer the original and how they did the voodoo stuff and everything, which is why they're gonna flock to the TV show that's coming out sometime in October.
Yeah,
I mean, the thing.
Chucky was
the-
really all about supernatural stuff. So when you took it away and added in like modern futuristic stuff, that's literally just a complete divergence from the
The
original.
thing is,
Yeah.
the 2019 film was just made to cash in on like the resurgence of Chucky, and the fact is that Mancini didn't have anything involved with it. It's just that I think it was Universal that had the rights to the first film.
They had the rights to the name of the Child's Play name. So if they want to do something for Chucky, like whoever owns like the Chucky character, they cannot call it Child's Play.
Yeah.
I think the doll also looked terrible compared to the original. I'm not sure what the hell they did with that face, but it just looked. They said they used like revolutionary doll technology, and I just did not see it. I thought it looked.
Stuart Griffin.
Yeah, it looked pretty bad.
They were trying to, if you watch the behind the scenes thing on the DVD, they were trying to make it more child friendly for some reason.
Well,
but
I could get that considering it's a child's toy, but you know.
And that's why they brought in the bear variants and everything. And I'm sitting there like, on one hand, I understand that. But part of the appeal of the original Child's Play was that the doll was unique and it wasn't exactly the cutest thing ever. Like, it kind of gave you, like we mentioned earlier, a little bit of subtext that, hey, something weird's going to happen. Whereas a lot of people went into the theaters seeing this cutesy doll, knowing it's a horror movie and something's bound to happen, but going, oh, nothing's going to happen too early in because it's all cute and stuff. First of all, go watch the original Child's Play, please. This is one of those movies you need to watch the original to completely understand the lore. Second of all, it didn't, like I just said, it didn't need to be cuter. We didn't need to make Chucky cuter. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, there are those philosophies and principles where it's like, you can change things, you can tweak things, you can alter them. There's just some things that maybe you shouldn't change just to remove it and put in this new idea, because there's going to be that sort of reception where it's like, now this is not as good as the original, so I don't really relate to it at all because they didn't put in the effort to make it interesting. And there are those moments in some of these horror movie remakes where it's like, yeah, Chucky looks terrible compared to how he used to look in the originals. So there are those creative liberties that are great, and then there's others where it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Stop.
Yeah, that is true. Anyone's got any insight to add to this? Going once? Going twice?
One quick question is, what do you think about like the whole studio interference thing? What happened with like The Thing, for example?
Oh, honestly though, like more times than not, studio interference really just kills the product, because we see that Warner Brothers is a good example of that. We saw what happened with their DCEU stuff, and then like you mentioned, The Thing with the reboot. So like, yeah, I think depending, it's a case by case though, but in particular in horror movies though, I think it hurts more so than it helps. Like, let the creative team fail themselves rather than you guys stepping in and then you guys are stupid for ruining this movie.
I was
I
gonna say
really want to
another.
see the original Event Horizon.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
On another note, I think going back to the Child's Play remake, I think it's something, and I think somebody actually mentioned this. Someone owning the rights to the Chucky name and then someone else owning the rights to the Child's Play name makes it very, very hard for a single studio to try to put together a true to form project when they have to run around in circles and be worried about more so getting the copyrights from this studio, that studio, and the other studio. in order to even do it. Instead of focusing on the end product, they're focusing on paying people.
Well, this leaves one advantage that one studio has. They have the characters of Chucky. Just they cannot use the name Child's Play, but that's fine because if you know Child's Play, you know who Chucky is. So just put Chucky in the title, and then there you go. You know, you got your audience right there. So
Yeah, at least it's a smart way to go around it.
I imagine if Friday the 13th had that same problem. Just you can't use the name, but you can
Didn't
use
they
Jason
have
Voorhees
it?
title. So
Didn't
like
they
just
have
put Jason
that
Voorhees.
problem for a while? Like
Yes, they
after
did.
part 8, they had to use the name Jason.
Yeah,
Yes, because was it Paramount owned the franchise originally, but they sold it to New Line, but they still have some rights of the original movie and the name, I believe.
yeah, they
So
had the archive rights and the copyright to the character, or not the character, the franchise name, because it was their franchise.
Yeah,
mhm.
like I remember with some ideas they had for part 9 was they wanted to bring back Tommy, but I think they couldn't get the rights to the character.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a reason why Jason Goes to Hell is so wildly different.
It makes you wonder why they sell the movie rights in the first place if they're gonna let the new studios use them.
Yeah, why are you keeping the? I understand keeping the archival rights because you're the original studio, you made it. You know, you want to keep that stuff archived. You don't. I hope you don't pull a Universal and then let your warehouse catch on fire because you didn't store things correctly. But yeah, you want to keep the archival rights to your original. But as far as the name rights, if you're transferring a film series to another studio, transfer the trademark. Don't be a greedy jackass.
Yeah, right. Like
Yeah,
you effectively hardened the brand just as much as you did when you released part 8.
yeah, and that's why that's why there's this whole mess going on right now.
But money though.
Fuck your money, chief.
I mean, that's their whole thought process was, hey, we can get more money out of New Line if we make them pay like $1 million or $2 million just to use the name. And New Line is a smaller studio too, for the most part. So they're just looking at them going, no.
Yeah, when
You know what,
you good.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, when they kill the domain and they decide to put all these rights in, and people cannot be creative with it, then that's the worst part about all this. Is like, what if someone wants to do a remake, but they literally cannot do it? It's the worst thing in the world, honestly.
You know what? One way to fix this: just put a mustache on Tommy Jarvis and change his name to Timmy, and there you go.
Timmy.
I was going to say, I can't remember what series it was, but there was one series where they wanted to do a remake like 10 years ago, but they couldn't because the copyright holder just fell off the face of the planet. And I'm like, those situations really suck.
How's that happen? Holy shit!
Yeah, like when you can't find the original creator and you want to remake something, I mean, your hands are tied unless you can find one of their family members or something. And that's just insane to think that for a lot of franchises, they could die that easily just because one CEO owns the rights to this because it was signed in his contract and then he left or whatever. Because the movie business does slimy shit like that all the time.
I need someone to commission art and do an image of Jason Voorhees in court with the Jeopardy theme playing in the background.
Who owns these rights?
Give me my rights back.
Yeah. Because that's what's going on, man. It's really terrible.
Jason's like that kid with the two parents fighting over custody rights.
Yeah.
But he's got like 6 parents that own different parts of the franchise.
One owns his face, one owns his leg, one owns his torso. That kind of shit. But that's a nice little segue. Much appreciate that. But let's go ahead and move on to number 4. What's your favorite / least favorite horror remake of all time? Cite your reasoning. Anyone could go first.
I mean, I'm going to be pretty boring here and say The Thing. Thing from Another World I watched as a kid. It's a big goofy plant monster. My grandmother loves that movie. and I think it's because there's a very particular. I think Ernest Borgnine is in it, or some old school actor that she really loves is in it, which is why she likes it. And then I saw the remake, like I think when I was 11 or 12, and I'm pretty sure I shit my pants. And I watch it, a couple times a year. It pays homage to the source material while at the same time making its own decisions. It's incredibly well written. It's very well crafted. It harps on the same kinds of things as the first one, and more so the short story that the first one was kind of supposed to be based on. And I don't know. It's one of those movies I can watch over and over again. I got the rare opportunity of seeing a bunch of people see it for the first time in a movie theater about 3 years ago. And, a bunch of people that were 10 years younger than me, screaming and people getting grossed out by all the KY monsters and all that stuff. Like seeing that dog scene with a bunch of new people was just awesome.
I just sorry. A little unrelated note though. The best, that's like the best experience seeing other people react to the first time. Yeah. But also it comes kind of rare. Like imagine seeing somebody seeing Star Wars Episode 5 for the first time, right? And seeing the the Luke and Vader thing, right? Seeing the first reaction to that is always the best because you never see it coming.
Yeah. In the same place, not a remake, but I saw Alien and Aliens there as well, and people seeing that for the first time is incredible. But the thing always has it's the remake that gives me hope for remakes. When I hear about a remake happening, going, you know what, maybe it can be the thing. Maybe it can be like that. It can be really good, nod to the source, but a completely different take, and just really, excellent in its own right. Other times you can get something like Cabin Fever, and then it's remake, and you go, what? And you just stare blankly at your television, and that's about it. That's about all the reaction you get, or you laugh.
Wait, hold on. They remade Cabin Fever?
Yeah. Cabin Fever was remade like 2 years after it was originally made, or something like that.
Yeah,
it came out in like 20. I forget what year.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's so bad, and it's like just mediocre bad. But I was laughing at all the dumb shit.
Oh,
it's a mediocre enough bad that you can make memes out of it.
Yeah,
and then nobody will like know what you're talking about. But if they do, they'll just be like, "Hey."
Yeah, and the original Cabin Fever personally wasn't really that great of a movie to begin with, in my opinion.
I mean, it has some. It's got some charm in it.
It's fun because it's an Eli Roth movie. All of his stuff is really fun to watch. But then somebody else remade it, and it's like, what? Why?
The funny thing is that Eli Roth wrote both movies.
Oh God, I didn't know he wrote the remake. Yeah, I mean, you'd have a better result if you took money in your front lawn and just lit it on fire and just inhaled the fumes.
Yeah, I think the problem is that it doesn't have that campiness the first one had.
No, it tries to be dead serious. That's the worst part. It tries to be super serious. So when, flesh starts peeling off of people and they're like, I'm just sitting there like giggling. but that's me.
Another film that was remade way too soon was the Spanish horror film Quarantine. The American remake came out 6 months after the original, and I was like,
no.
I do not like Quarantine. Holy shit.
No.
The original is so creepy because it's filmed on low budget film, and it was filmed in Spain, and it's really well written by a storybook writer who had history writing horror stories. And then the American remake kind of stripped everything from the original and made it a stereotypical zombie film. And I'm just like, why did you put this out 6 months after the original? Because the original is right there next to it in Walmart on the shelf.
During that whole time where they were just remaking films from other countries.
Yeah, try to appeal to the American audience though, but the movie itself is good enough. If you're too lazy to read subtitles, then I'm sorry, but don't watch the movie.
But the Spanish version was mostly in English too. That's the messed up part.
Yeah, there's
it was on the shelf right next to the new version of Quarantine, and I'm sitting there going, "Yep, I'm buying the original one. Screw this."
I recommend you watch Rec. The movies are fantastic.
Yeah.
A good remake.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
A good remake that actually, or at least in my opinion, that doesn't really get much attention, and it bombed horribly at the box office because nobody knew what the original was either, was Maniac. That one actually wasn't too
Yes.
bad.
I've not
Uh,
seen that one.
Oh
It
man.
was back in 2012, right?
I think so. 2011, 2012. I think that's about when. Let me look.
Yep, 2012.
But can I just
Okay.
say, when Elijah Wood plays weirdos, he's so good at it.
Wait, isn't he a real anyway? So
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him in a bunch of stuff recently, including Maniac, and he embodies weirdness so well.
And he loves doing horror movies too. So whenever he does a horror role, especially in times, which it's been about 2 or 3 times now that he's played the main character that you're supposed to be scared of or that you're going to be rooting for, he does his homework, especially about what the genre is that he's going to be doing, because he does know there are different genres of horror movies. And in Maniac's case, he actually went back and watched the original film, which a lot of people don't actually do in horror movies, which when you're making a remake that's supposed to be true to the original, makes it very hard for you to embody that character. Um, Elijah Wood, like you said, is very good at playing weirdos, and that aspect combined with them actually getting a really good script writer for that movie made it actually a good remake. I'm happy to have that on my shelf. It's next to Prom Night's remake, but I still have it on my shelf.
Ooh.
Mm. Well, actually, I'm gonna throw you guys a curveball here. I'm not gonna say the thing because David Gray already said it, and plus it's an easy answer because it's so good.
Yeah, sorry.
But I would say though, it's technically not necessarily a remake, more like a retelling in the same universe. But I really enjoy Evil Dead, the one that came out like almost 10 years ago now. I don't know. I enjoy the fact that they took the concept of the
2013 one?
original. Yes, I think it's 2013, wherever year it came out in. Like I don't know why. Like I really enjoyed that. He took the concept of the original and literally redid it by literally retelling the events. Like, and I think in the canon of it, like the Necronomicon will actually redo events of what happened in the first movie. Or at least that was the premise behind it, which is I thought was pretty damn cool. So not only is in the same universe though, but you can see a different take of this same thing with different characters.
That one
Even
was actually.
hmm?
No, go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. Good.
I was just gonna say that one was my honorable mention for this question because I really enjoyed it too.
Yeah. But my least favorite remake. Sorry, I'm gonna pick on this movie. Freaking Black Christmas 2019. To keep that movie brief
Oh,
is nothing would make Black Christmas a classic. Like hell,
yeah.
it's worse than the 2006 movie.
Ooh,
Oof.
Like
ooh.
by a mile, dude.
I have
Oof.
not watched that one. I've watched the 2006 one, which was rough enough already, as you've mentioned. Uh, but yeah, I have not seen that one. I'm kind of scared and kind of want to look at it now, though.
Don't.
It'll be a nice waste of my time while I go to sleep.
Okay, so you won't remember when you wake up. Perfect.
Yeah. Another remake I actually liked a lot was 1986's remake of The Fly from 1956. It was
Oh yeah,
really
that's a
good.
good one.
I was wondering was that
Okay.
counts a horror movie or not because I seen it as a kid and I was so mesmerized by it. It was so good.
It's actually considered a horror movie. Yes, it's a suspense horror, but it's still considered horror.
Okay, so thank you. Yeah, I will add that to my list too because that was a fantastic movie.
Yeah, the original. Please do not watch the 1956 one.
Oh, it's funny though.
It is funny going back and watching it. The trials of some of the stuff they did in the original definitely does not age well. If you want to laugh your ass off, by all means, go watch it. But if you're looking for a suspenseful horror like the 1986 one, please don't bother.
I'm also just one more. I have to throw in another movie because the thing is easy, right? Suspiria remake is
Oh my god.
probably one of my favorite remakes of all time, just in general, not just horror. There's actual dancing in the movie. There's everything's wonderfully shot. All of the behind the scenes stuff that's going on with the actual people that run the dance academy is fantastic. There are a couple moments where my jaw just smacked the floor during that movie. Just overall impressive.
I mean, even the behind the scenes footage on the DVD, like they filmed that very well. Like they put time and effort into every single aspect from the end credits to the beginning. They tried to make that as loyal as possible, but also at the same time to add some flair to it that'll make us all happy. For making him add so many movies to his list.
Yes, he's charting his list right now.
Also,
let's write this down.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, fuck the movie Pulse. That's it. Sorry, I'm done.
My favorite remake would probably have to be The Ring.
Hey, that was a really recent one, but it's good.
Yeah, because I watch Ringu and I'm just bored. But The Ring manages to make it creepy and just tense throughout. You're waiting for that next scare.
Oh, you're talking about compared to the original. I thought you were talking about the remake that just came out last year. Oh, yes, Ringu is a little difficult to watch. I will agree with that, especially if you read the book and then you watch Ringu and then you watch The Ring. The book makes it very suspenseful and you're looking forward to watching it. And if you watch Ringu, especially now that the other Ring remakes have come out, it's kind of concerning.
I need to revisit the Rings. And I need to rewatch a lot of ghost movies like freaking Woman's Call, the Japanese version, not the American one. Which, by the way, that could be considered a bad remake as well. Like, it's a guilty pleasure because they got me into the series, but it's a bad remake.
Well, wasn't there like a whole commentary on how like people are just like becoming shut-ins with technology or something?
Well, I haven't picked that up though.
Or maybe
that's funny.
Maybe it was another one.
I was gonna say, oh wait, nope. I'll wait till later to answer. Maybe bring up that one because it's actually one I want to see remade.
I guess I can do mine real quick. It's not going to be too long, but I really like the Dawn of the Dead remake by Zack Snyder. I know that I've done a lot of shit posting on Snyder fans, but I feel like as a director, when it comes to that movie in particular, he made a good job. Like I can't really shit on that film as much as I do with Batman v Superman, but he definitely took something where it has a tighter pace. It feels a lot more contained. It feels like they put a lot more fear into it as opposed to the original, where it's like there's this allegory behind consumerism and there's still that in the mall, but everything's just amped up to 11, and I really like that pace.
I think it's just two different things, where in the original it was just, well, at first it doesn't seem too bad and then it slowly starts to escalate.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the new one it kind of shit hits the fan from the beginning.
Yep, real quick. It's just right
like
to
in the original they were in that mall for maybe like 6 to 8 months, I think.
Jesus, that's a long time.
Yeah, which is why eventually they started to realize that, like all of society's collapsed and they're kind of becoming prisoners.
Another remake I really enjoyed was Friday the 13th. I thought that was well done, and it showed us a side of Jason that is very meticulous. Like, Jason's scary when he uses his brain, laying down bear traps and getting people strung up into these giant rope contraptions and having them burn to death. It's some very vicious shit in that movie that Jason does, and him honestly, just charging at people like at that size, like holy fuck, it's just crazy, dude.
And I was going to bring that up though, admittedly, but I was like, you know what, I'm just going to say Evil Dead instead. But yeah, I have a hot take here. I think Friday the 13th remake is one of the best Friday the 13th movies, bar none.
I
think
agree.
The movie's excellently shot, has a lot of action, a lot of kills. And Jason in that movie is easily one of the best Jasons ever. Like you said, like he uses his brain, so he uses his environment to get you, set traps, all that jazz. Like he's incredible in that movie. Like honestly, I don't get why the movie gets so much shit because
I
it
guess
was great.
because some of the characters suck or something like that.
Yeah, I can
It-
see. I can see that.
Sure, but name a good character in most of the Friday the 13th movies that's not Tommy or the girl, the Carrie girl from Part 7.
I mean, there's that Crispin Glover. I thought he was pretty good in like I think it was part 4.
And then he amazingly died too, so that happened.
Yeah.
Worst horror movie remakes. I'm gonna have to say Psycho. Imagine taking this whole thing with an interesting character like Norman Bates and putting Vince Vaughn in his shoes and making the character even more boring than you could expect, and taking away all the substance of Psycho. And that's what you get with the Psycho remake. It's absolutely horrible.
It is funny to watch. I watched a CinemaSins video on it, and they graded it as if it was another Vince Vaughn rom-com, which made it fucking brilliant.
Trying to think of another bad remake. I know you guys said like Quarantine, and I agree. That movie's like super bland compared to the original.
Well, we already said freaking Quarantine. Yeah, we said Quarantine. That's another one I just looked at that we literally just said. Now it's drawn in blank.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers has 2 bad remakes, so there's always that.
Interesting.
Let's not talk about
Prom Night. Prom Night is definitely a bad.
Yeah. In its original form, it is very horrible, and its unrated form, it's tolerable.
That
I mean,
cemetery was useless.
Oh my god. And am I the only one that didn't like the TV show based on Psycho?
A lot of people said Bates Motel's pretty good though.
First few seasons were pretty good, but I kind of dropped out around the 3rd or 4th.
I tried to like it. I really did. And I gave, like you said, the first couple seasons a chance. But especially as it went on, it felt like we mentioned earlier, they were trying to create too much backstory that did not need to be there. If that makes sense. Like they were trying really, really hard to add more to the story that necessarily for that did not need to be there.
So you basically were saying like they added too much stuff for the killer instead of just keeping him what he was. That would make him interesting in the first place. They try to like double down on something that was not needed.
Yes, essentially. It and they added meticulous details to why he was the way he was, and weird instances with his mother that were never like mentioned in the original, and they started like leaning more and more into it to the point where it kind of became a caricature of what the original was towards the end of it. And I know that sounds bad, especially because I do like Psycho and I can tolerate the Vince Vaughn one. But watching the show, I like I said, tried to give it a chance at first, but as it continued going on, it almost became a caricature of the series.
Well, don't they kind of like elaborate on that a little bit in the what's the one where Norman's calling into a radio show and he's talking about his past? Is that the 4th one? Or
that's like Psycho 4.
Yeah, so I know that there's definitely, it's more than implied that there was something going on between Norman and his mother at that point. I thought that Bates Motel was just expanding upon that. I didn't know they just put in all this weird stuff as well.
They did expand on it, but the way they went about it, it was weird. Let's just leave that way.
That'll do it. I will say that remake is really impressive because of the meticulous detail and going shot for shot, but other than that, it's boring.
It's just made as like a weird experiment.
Yeah, it's just really weird, and once you get past like how the cinematography is, it's just not as good as the originals.
All right, I got a question. Has anyone seen Portuguese, the 2015 remake?
No.
Yeah, it was bad.
No.
I went to theaters to try to see that because I liked the original, and I wanted a refund afterwards.
Yeah, it wasn't any good.
I legit was mad that I spent money on popcorn when I walked out of the theater.
What the fuck? I'm looking at the chat. I didn't know Jacob's Ladder had a remake as well. Like, when did that
Yeah, it
happen?
did.
Yeah.
And I guess it wasn't that good.
Really?
Oh my god!
Eric and I
Wow.
are sitting here listing off like remakes that y'all are going, what?
No, that was perfectly fine because like I need more stuff to watch. Cause I watch a lot of horror movies though, but I didn't like watch a lot of remakes. At least that I'm aware of.
Again,
But
for comedy purposes, I want you to watch the American version of Toy Box.
Watch The Wicker
Because, like,
Man. Watch The Wicker Man.
what-
Come on.
yeah, that's the best one, Ren. You know this. But actually, I got
yeah.
one more mention before we move on. The Piranha 3D, the first one. Do not watch Double D. Oh Lord, that movie is a mess. But yeah, Piranha.
I have not watched any of the Piranha movies.
Yeah, because Piranha 3D is a technically another remake because we had one in 1995, but I haven't seen that one, so I can't give an opinion on it. But Piranha 3D, I actually really liked it. Not the best movie in the world though, but it's definitely a really serviceable popcorn flick type movie. But Double D is trash. Like they doubled down on a lot of things that shouldn't be doubled down, pun intended. So yeah, the movie's just not good. Put it simple. But yes, let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
Well, before we do that, going back to the needless backstory, I think that's a big part where a lot of remakes go wrong. They want to explain every little thing because they think it adds to the character, and a lot of the times it demystifies them and makes them less scary.
As mentioned, that hour and a half of backstory for that one film.
Exactly.
Why is it there? We got 20 minutes of horror, and the rest is just backstory.
All right. What was it number 5? How do you feel about the general idea of a horror movie reboot? When the whole slate is wiped and everything is redone to subvert some expectations.
I'm fine with it.
So long as done right though, but there's like the one I listed earlier, Wrong Turn. It's a good movie though, but it completely kills the foundation of what made Wrong Turn. Whether you like this movie or not though, it's generally about freaking hillbillies killing people and eating them. But so
sorry. I never really liked the original of that to begin with, and now when they revamped the series, we're on Wrong Turn, 8 now?
7.
Yeah, they kind of dove headfirst into it, and people honestly buy it just as filler movies on their shelf at this point. I think that's an example of where, even though I didn't like the original, I respected it, and the remake it's essentially just cringe fuel for the Dollar Tree bin.
Yeah, I'm not going. I like the franchise because it's a really guilty pleasure. I enjoy it, but the movies are bad unless you the first 2 movies. Watch the first 2 movies though. But yeah, 3 to 6, they're really bad movies. But the premise of Wrong Turn, what kept me interested in the franchise, but something that the new one, the reboot, takes away. So I'm like, you can look. I have no problem them calling it Wrong Turn though, but it shouldn't have been a reboot because it was not necessary considering how different it is. They could have called it literally the Foundation, which is called in Europe, by the way, and say it takes place in the same universe as Wrong Turns, just with a different type
they
of
could have just
group and whatnot.
Yeah, like Randall said, they could have just called it the Foundation, and it wouldn't have changed anything.
So like reboots like that, I do have a good general issue with. What you got, Ren?
So in terms of reboots and them wiping the slate clean for all these reboots and everything, I think that for the most part, it's okay if you want to do something unique and start over and maybe like introduce new characters or maybe flip the genre on its head and see what you could do in a more scarier state. However, I think the problem is that when they reboot these movies, they end up losing some things in translation where it's like, okay, you deviated, you made liberties, but now it's like there are some things that don't even resemble the original formula anymore. I think it's fine to clear it, but at the same time, I think you have to also remember the roots of what made the original really good in the first place, and how do you either make something new or make something different that's really good for the modern masses. And sometimes they really just fail to do that. Mostly from what I see, it's the same situation with like remakes where they try to have a loose adaptation and follow the original, and they end up not doing that really well. I can't really think of anything like off the top of my head that was really great outside of the one that you guys really talked about, which was Evil Dead, because I keep hearing that movie is like super good and I really want to see it. And I remember they just took everything, they changed it, they completely added new characters, and Ash is like in this little cameo at the end that really doesn't matter because they made a TV series with him anyway. So there's that.
They were originally going to do Army of Darkness 2 and Evil Dead 4. Oh, it was either going to be like Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness 2, which would have led to a crossover.
Yeah, that would have been neat. I think when they do things like that where there is something new being established, but there is connective tissue, then that's probably like cashing in on that nice sort of fan service. But when they take something and it's like it's not even similar or familiar or anything, and it doesn't end up being well, then you probably might run into a problem, because that's when you have a franchise, a horror franchise in particular, where it's just associated in name only.
I was going to say another good example of what Ren is saying is like the Glass House and its sequel slash remake, where they rewrote pretty much the lore for the 2001 movie in 2006 and completely recast everybody, but it's also supposed to be kind of a sequel to the original The Glass House. I feel like, you know, if you're going to reboot something and redo the story, that's fine. But do it properly, please.
I think a better example for me is Child's Play, because we went from Cult of Chucky, and that was an amazing, like, sort of revelation where everything was going to shit. Nika's possessed. We have Kyle coming back. We have this great, like, cliffhanger here, right? And then all of a sudden they decide to reboot everything, and all the fans are saying, well, what the fuck? We want to see what happens with this. What's going on? And then you just put out this sort of reboot. I think that's when it's really telling. If it doesn't feel like it's adding anything quality to the table, especially wiping the old lore when there's a distinctive reason to go back and revisit it and leaving people off cliffhangers, I think that's when it's bullshit.
Wait, I got a question actually. With Chucky, the upcoming thing with the original Chucky, is that a continuation of Cult, or is it?
It's a continuation. Continuation.
Yeah,
Okay,
they are.
What?
I was gonna say, yeah. I think they said that Andy and Nika were gonna appear in it.
I was making sure though, because like you mentioned though, with the other side of Child's Play with the toy robot and whatnot, like yeah, that's an example of that. But at the same time, you also have like them still continue on from that side, just not using the name, you know. But yeah, that's all I wanted, some clarification. Because I thought it was a continuation, and you make it sound like it was a reboot.
Yeah, it's a continuation for sure, because once again, you know, I'm just saying that when they took that reboot and they made it in the middle of a cliffhanger, and we didn't get the continuation news until like a little bit later, but people were wondering like what the hell was going on when they announced that first reboot. And it's like, okay, are they going to even explain what even happened in Cult in the first place after this movie? Like, people were in doubt. That's sort of what I'm referencing, is that I know it's a weird example doing this as well, but let's look at like Resident Evil 2 remake and the original. Like, I feel like if you're gonna make a reboot, it should still be like a companion piece to the original regardless, whereas you go and you make a reboot and you have the remake and all this shit, and it gets confusing after a while when you're having this timeline in the middle of like crucial plot details, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just weird. I don't like when they do that with reboots, but you know, if they do something that's well done and fun, then I totally don't mind it. I'm down when they start over.
Okay. Anyone else got anything to add to this question?
Making like starting your own kind of branch of an established franchise, I've never really had an issue with. It's the notion of, hey, listen, that old storyline, fuck that, we got the real storyline. That shit, like that attitude, like when a director comes out or a writer comes out and is like, I wanted to make get a real attempt at a Thing movie, or I wanted to do the real version of The Exorcist, something like that. Like that's kind of like, you lost me completely.
So when they sound like a hack, pretty much.
Yeah, when they sound like a hack, or they sound like all they do is just like sniff their own asshole, like I'm kind of done.
Yeah, I don't like that mindset either, where it's like we're gonna do like the superior version, and this old thing or whatever that people enjoy, that doesn't mean shit. Like, once again, I know it's another video game example, but I remember when they were doing this with Devil May Cry with the reboot. And that was just, that attitude right there is just like the worst thing you could go through.
The worst part is, I like DMC Devil May Cry as its own thing, but I hate Tamim and what he was doing.
Yeah.
Talking.
Yeah, so you were there too. You were there.
I was like,
oh.
Also, Ninja Theory is a great studio, but the head of the studio at the time had his head so far up his ass that it made the, like, they wanted to do something different in an alternate universe. That's what the devs said they wanted to do. But then you have their CEO of Ninja Theory coming and talking out of his ass about how they're going to make Capcom look stupid and they're going to make a good version of DMC. And I'm just sitting there like, sir, shut up.
Somewhere online, there's a presentation that he showed to his staff where he's like, I don't want to make this kind of Dante, and it was like Dante from Devil May Cry 4 with like the leather and the coat or whatever, and like he was on the set of like next to a picture of like Brokeback Mountain or something.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I want to make a Dante like this, and it's like Tyler Durden all beat up and all that kind
shows
of stuff.
Himself very much.
I want to make like a bum, like, oh god.
Yeah, that's just like hack material. When they do reboots like that, I just sort of side eye it, because I'm like, this might be destined for failure if they do this. and 99% of the time, I'm usually right. It's like rarely we get a hack and they produce something like super good. It's like a rare moment.
And the DMC definitive version, if you actually play the version of it, is fantastic gameplay wise. But all the media around it, instead of just promoting it as an alternate timeline, promoting it as the replacement, which Capcom has come out and went, no, that was not the intention, kind of messed it up. Another horror movie that's kind of and didn't need a reboot, it's the lore completely rewritten, that I just thought of while going to the bathroom, The Fog.
I see that on a lot of like bad horror movie remake lists, and I'm wondering why.
Does it have any relation to The Mist? Because The Mist was really good.
I don't think so.
No relation.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Fog original was good. It's one of those ones where you go back and watch it and it's kind of cheesy. But the remake in 2005 with the guy from Smallville, I can't remember his freaking name.
Tom Holland? Tom Holland.
No,
Yeah.
Was it?
Or who are you talking about? I'm guessing here. Like,
trying to remember his name. He plays Clark Kent in Smallville. But
yeah. Tom Welling.
Tom Welling.
That one had the potential to be really good. They had a good set of writers that have done great projects since then. I don't know what went wrong here. And a good producer, good director. And then they had a good cast of people. Like Tom Welling has done horror movies since then and been really good in them. So what? But they completely like scrapped most of the original lore and only kept the skeleton of it, which makes it very, very hard, especially when The Fog wasn't a really popular horror movie to begin with. to attract people to come watch it when you rip everything but essentially the bed frame out of it. It made it very hard to get into it. If you watch it as a standalone movie, it's okay. It's a cheesy ass movie, but it's okay. Uh, but when you watch the original and then you watch it, uh, it makes it very it makes it look very unnecessary. Like The Fog did not need a remake, despite having a good cast, despite having all the right players in place. It feels like it shouldn't have happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
No.
does. Well, Brandon, dickhead, but
I mean, it was just another film that just blended in with all the other remakes at the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the sad part is, I'm sure anybody who's watched the original can attest to this. The original didn't blend in, and so having a remake, like I said, with a really good staff and people who've gone on to do horror movies again after it that were good, and having it blend in kind of sucks and hurts a little bit.
basically, what you should do is you can subvert my expectations, but don't do it in a way where it's like you end up like to meme hack, saying it's gonna be better than the original when that's just like putting I think once again when people put that high bar of expectations on themselves and they act like that, then people start to compare things a little bit more often than not. So
That's ironic considering the recent thing that happened with another show. I'm not gonna say it on air.
Mhm.
But when you overset expectations, you're gonna get the shitstorm when you don't come out swinging with that with set of product.
yeah.
But anybody else got anything to add to this?
No.
Going once? No. All right. I'm gonna move on to number 6.
Yeah, okay.
To follow up on question 6, do you prefer these ones for remakes that? Do you prefer ones for remakes that mimic the original with no alterations, or try to appreciate it more and reinvent the wheel, pretty much? Well, what do you prefer between the two?
A mixture of both.
Personally, I want familiarity. Why them trying to add something new or do something a little different to change it up? Because that's what basically what Evil Dead, is familiar ground, but they did something a little new, like a new cast of characters and some other stuff that clearly did not happen in the original movie that was based on.
Modernize it and add your own tweaks, but don't rip apart the original.
Yeah, so pretty much.
Yeah, I feel like just a small string of lore that if it was deep, you know what I mean? Because there are some original horror movies where it's like the lore is just all over the place or basic, but just a small simple idea. Hey, we're gonna take this, we're gonna revamp it, and we're gonna put our own spin at the same time while maybe easing in some fan service, and maybe people who saw the original is like, oh, I noticed something like that, that's a familiar shot, or this is a familiar event. Like stuff like that kind of calls to me because it brings out the nerdiness of seeing that original thing happen in the previous movie. So I think when horror movies do that, it's very cool. Like when Ash came up at the end of the remake, that was fucking awesome. I was like, oh shit, well that's really cool, I like that. So when they do stuff like that, it's a mixture of both. That's what I prefer.
Yeah, if you're gonna remake the whole thing, it ends up feeling like a fanfic. Like, hey, what if this guy was in this movie?
Yeah. And the main thing we're looking to see is his art going to be as interesting as the last guy, and that's the thing we're looking for if they could really pull it off.
Yeah. Still, I might be a bit controversial, but I'm more on the whole try something new and bring instead of just trying to be as close to the original.
That's true because
I mean, okay, at that point, then why bother remaking the product? Just make a new movie based on that brand rather than just remaking it. Because if you're gonna like completely redo everything, you might as well just make it a reboot rather than a remake.
Yeah, the thing is, like, this is what people criticize Nightmare on Elm Street for. They were like, well, you know, they remade it, but it's too similar to the original, too many similar shots. Micro sleep is cool. They made some changes that we like and some changes we don't like. Too similar to
Yeah.
the original, we don't like it that much.
Like the whole Freddy coming out of the wall thing, it looked really cool in the 80s, but when you look at the 2010 film, it looks pretty laughable.
Also, when he's dragging the body through the hallway, it's like the same shit as the original. So there can be cases where it's like, okay, maybe this is a little bit too close to the original, and people are going to be like, you're just mimicking now, and nothing's really being done
I
to
think
add
that's
anything
what
to this.
To be honest though, like that's kind of like I'm fine with them still doing like taking shots or whatever from the original, but they still do enough in the remake where it's stands its own 2 feet without it being a huge piggyback to the original. Now, granted though, I know a lot of people don't like the movie though, but it does its job as a remake. It does things differently while also keeping some familiarity, which it does a good job at doing that. Now, the quality of the movie is questionable, sure, but still, it does its job as a remake.
I feel
mean-
like when you talk about this question and it wasn't in the document, and I'm sorry, Drill, for cutting you off, I'll let you go next. But I feel like when it comes to 1-for-1 remakes with horror movies, that's a weird thing because sure, there might be an audience of people that want something like that, but at the same time, are you really gonna say like, oh, they shot for shot the original, they just updated some things, that's it? They're gonna endlessly compare it to the original regardless and try to decide what's better. And that's the thing. It's like, can you really get away with something like that if you try to do the movie? And the answer is it's kind of a weird sort of slippery slope in my opinion. It's like you have to try to do something at least unique to make people want to see it that are diehard fans.
Yeah, or else they'll be like, well, why don't I just what's
Watch the
point? I can
original.
just
Like, what's
watch.
the point? Like, they're gonna come up with that opinion.
Yeah, I mean that's Ren, you ever see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2003 one?
I did, and people say the same thing about that movie, but honestly, I like the family dynamic, and Arlie Ermy, I think, is the main sheriff.
Yeah, he's a new character that was in the 2003 film, and I thought that changed things up pretty well.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, nah, I might be biased here though, but again, I'm not the biggest fan of the Texas Chainsaw brand, but I do like the 2003, and it's technically it's prequel that came out 2 years later, some change.
Yeah.
Like I do prefer those two movies though because I think they did enough to distance itself from the original films while also adding its own flavor to it. Now I prefer if I go back to watch Texas Chainsaw, I'd rather watch those two movies rather than the stuff that came beforehand.
I agree with that. I'm gonna give a silly shout out here to somebody who I actually follow and is one of Mutes or Moots. Freddy in Space is he's from Bloody Disgusting. He is a very unbiased horror movie reviewer, and I feel like as far as fans and stuff like that, when going into remakes, they could take notes from him. Of course, you're gonna want to be biased about movies that you loved before, but you also need to kind of try to look at it as if it's a brand new film and you haven't seen the original source material so that you can give the film a chance. And then after you've watched them both and you've analyzed them both individually, then you can start to make your comparisons on what you liked and what you didn't like. Because if you go into it just focused on the source material and focus specifically on that original film, you're not going to like any mild changes that are made in the remake or sequel.
Yep, exactly. I agree.
I'm gonna come at this from kind of a weird angle, but I kind of like both. In all honesty, either a healthy mix, one or the other. One of the things that kind of turned me on to this realization is watching the first 4 Alien movies are the exact same movie. Like they hit the same plot points almost beat for beat as you're going through it. They're just tackled by completely different directors, and one of them is edited really horribly, but you get these same beats and you get them from 4 different very, very different writers and directors that take essentially the same source material, Alien, a Ripley, thing on ship or in base or whatever, hunting people, have to kill it unconventionally. There's usually a bad special effect at the end. There's people sleeping in cryotubes at the end, blah, 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 all that. And it makes you look at kind of horror movie remakes or just remakes in general as a whole. And just kind of go, okay, cool. That's how this person's doing it. Whether it's good or not is a completely different question. But there are some things that I see that are very admirable on both ends of that spectrum, like the Psycho remake. Somebody making a shot-for-shot remake, that's kind of impressive in and of itself. It's not great, but I mean, it doesn't really have an point in existing, but it's kind of neat. And then somebody getting really crazy ambitious with it, like what Cronenberg did with The Fly, is like, wow. Like I never thought this movie could be like the grossest thing on the planet. That's awesome. And it's scary and it's weird and it's cool. So I don't know. I'm kind of like both.
Yeah.
If you're following the script or you're following whatever, you're putting the same characters, it can be good or bad depending on what you're doing. It just, I don't know. I like it all if it's good. That's my big thing.
Yeah, like I said, I like a mixture of them. Like you said, it depends on the director. I mean, you have to have a knowledge of what you're working with when you come in to reboot a series. I feel like that is very important at most. We do see a lot of instances where just random directors pick up a horror movie remake or reboot for a quick paycheck, and don't actually do any homework. And I feel like that is usually where we end up with those detrimental situations. But also at the same time, like I mentioned with The Fog, you could have people that do their homework and it still turns out somehow very mediocre. So it's kind of a coin toss. I like a mixture of being true to the original, but I also like new stuff. It's very much a coin toss. And that's why I kind of mentioned that thing about going into each film and kind of giving it a chance as its own individual film first, and then looking at it in other aspects.
Okay, well said. Does anybody else got anything to say?
No, I think I gave my thoughts.
All right. Next question.
Yes, actually, Ryan, let you take this one.
Okay, so hold on a second. We like to compare and contrast a lot when the idea pops up for a horror movie remake. Do you have any instance where you didn't appreciate the original film or source material compared to the remake or reboot? This is a hard question. Like, fuck, I really have to think about this one.
Well, I mean, we already mentioned The Thing.
Yeah, The Thing is easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, it would be the, of course, Evil Dead. I enjoyed that one a lot. But there's Piranha. I think that's better than the original. But I haven't seen the original in years, so take that how you will.
The Fly.
The Fly. My Bloody Valentine 3D, at least in my opinion. I thought that was good. Chainsaw Massacre. Upset.
I was going to say
The Ring was mentioned earlier.
Yep. My bad.
It's okay.
I was going to say Cape Fear sits really high on my book because the original is kind of difficult to watch.
Yeah,
I forgot about that one.
Is fantastic.
De Niro just
Nails
really, he's amazing. He brought so much to that role where it's like, I don't even see myself watching the original because he was so good and menacing.
Yeah, and The Crazies also comes to mind because the original is, even for me, someone that really appreciates and loves what's his face, George Romero and all that. It's very just like industrially shot film, like it's very practical. And I can't stand the original version, but the remake in 2010 with Timothy Olyphant is awesome.
That's all the ones I enjoy over the original. So like, I don't know. That's all I can think of top of my head right now.
Yeah. Anyone else have any opinions on the original movie not really landing with you, but the remake did?
Or not landing with me? Well, again, that would be Texas Chainsaw for me. Like, I don't care for the original movies, but I did enjoy the remake reboot series.
So I did not realize this until I was looking online just now, actually. So there was actually a 1998 remake of Ringu as well. gonna have to look into that one. Uh, but yeah, definitely. Both the Ring remakes come to mind as good ones. As far as the original, like someone mentioned earlier, it is a good cheese fest to cringe at. But that's about it.
Yeah, this one is super hard for me. We got some out, but I really cannot, because most original movies I tend to love. I'm just gonna say like most black and white ones probably I can't go back and watch because
Yeah.
I just prefer the new updated stuff. So that's how
I
I
guess
feel.
that's like an acquired taste, honestly.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Another one I forgot about. Carnival of Souls. The '90s remake was much better than the original,
Hmm.
in my opinion.
I totally agree there.
Anyone else before we move on?
Yeah, for me, it's really hard, but Randall had my answer, which was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, I really like that like 2003 movie. It was really good. Like I do like the original as well, but I can probably see why people really don't like it that much because when you look at it, if you've seen one slasher, you've pretty much seen them all. So that's just like one of those things. But like I said, I really enjoyed the family dynamic a lot more in the remake.
Another one, this is going to be one of those cheesy ones that I like. That's really bad. The Cheerleader Massacre remake is better than the original one. I think that's mainly because the original was so freaking low budget, and they actually had semblance of a budget for the remake. Also, they chose some girls that were really good as acting as dumb blondes, which probably helped a lot.
I want to sort of
Are they hot?
repurpose. Yeah, you
Yeah.
you can say that too. That's great, booty. All right, I want to repurpose this question to make it easier. Is there any like horror movie remakes where you enjoy the ideas more compared to the original, like in the story or the characters or things like that? That makes it a little bit more easier.
I guess that would be like Friday the 13th because I like Jason, how he's portrayed more,
Same.
being more of an apex killer, using his brain compared to how he was in their like first three movies because it wasn't until he became a zombie Jason where he became a little bit more diverse in how he kills people.
Yeah, he was just guy with a potato sack on his head in part two, and that was like just really funny to me before he got the mask.
Yeah, and the first one, it was just his mom.
Yeah, which is cool, but people
They
remember
do.
as Jason.
They
So
do reference Pamela Voorhees in the 2009 film.
yeah, she get killed off in like first 5 seconds.
I feel like the remake of The Omen definitely expanded on it a little bit more on the original ideas for the original film, which definitely worked really well, especially with the cast they chose. Also, what was it called? April Fool's Day's remake actually had some good ideas and good planning as far as how they did the set and how they managed the look of each character to make it really stand out where, hey, this is this character. I know you might not think of them the same way that you did in the original now, but they really worked with the changes in technology really well for that one.
I got another one. I know this movie is inferior to the original remake, but when they did the prequel for The Thing, I thought it was cool for them to cover the Norwegian base. It felt like that was an idea that would have been a very cool and proper continuation of Done Right. And I'm still sort of hoping that they notice this idea was great because we see all these people in peril or they're either already dead by the time the American guys get there. And everyone wanted to know like what's their story, like what's their backstory, and they tried to convey that in a way where it wasn't done that great, but it's a good idea nonetheless.
No, I do see some complaints about that, saying like, no, it kind of kills like the imagination of like if this creature could do this, then what happened there. But personally, though, I want to see what happened, just done right.
Yeah, same. It's like if they set up the idea, there's nothing wrong with someone coming in and trying to expand it, obviously have done the right way. And I think seeing what happens to all those guys and the blood pool and how they discovered like that giant spaceship, I want to know what happened. Like I'm very curious. Just they didn't tell it right.
Yeah,
The re-
although they do some things different. Like instead of the blood test, they do the whole teeth filling things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Another one that kind of and it is a cheesier one. They rely a lot on special effects for it.
Suspiria sticks
Oh,
out for me
sorry.
a lot.
The remake
Oh, no,
slash
you're fine. Sorry.
sequel to Terror Train called Train. They kind of, it's supposed to still rely heavily on the original, but it is a reboot. There are completely new characters, and they even didn't use the original name. They just called it Train. But it is a reboot for the Terror Train series, which honestly, like I said, even though it does rely a lot on special effects and things like that, because they wanted to experiment, the premise of it is actually really good, and they kind of did expand a little bit on the original, but they did it in a way that also modernized it and made it not as cringy to watch, but also cringy because of the special effects. I guess it's a thin line. Like, if you can't handle cringy special effects, you're going to hate it. But on the other hand, if you can tolerate that for 2 hours and you can watch it and like appreciate the fact that they put the time to expand upon the original premise, but they also rebooted it and created a uh, whole new character base so that they don't accidentally tarnish the original. It's actually a really good movie.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Sorry, you know, random ass remakes.
No, that's
No,
fine.
no, it's fine. It warrants that sort of response with this question, so I don't mind.
I guess one thing that I thought was kind of a interesting idea that kind of fell a bit flat is with the Rob Zombie one where he wanted to expand on Michael, but I don't know, like I it's a cool idea, but it also kind of demystifies him, and it's kind of a lame excuse because he just became like that because he had a shitty childhood.
You know, I want to be honest though. Like, I'm actually fine with Zombie's take on how he done Michael because it's his Michael, not how they did in the original series and then his other like reboot series like H2O and then of course John Carpenter's like that's nothing in Rob Zombie's corner of Halloween. I'm fine with him like giving his Michael Myers a backstory that you can see how he became where he is. So like I'm fine with it. Well, my problem is that given as Rob Zombie, he puts in a lot of white trash into his movies to just put it nicely,
Yeah.
which I had a problem with. No, I still like the movie though, but the earlier segments though they and some other parts in the movie though he tried a little too hard, from to say the sexuality part of things and how people talk to each other.
Yeah,
I will say his wife's quote during one of the panels kind of made me giggle around the time that was coming out, where she said essentially her husband just decided he wanted to film a Michael Myers fan fiction. So like,
Well, that's probably the best way to put it, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't need the backstory, but I love how brutal he made those movies.
I mean, it's Rob Zombie. He makes his music videos brutal, and he literally pretends to sacrifice his own wife on stage. I'm pretty sure we kind of expected that.
And I wasn't surprised he sold his soul to the devil already.
He is the devil. What are you saying?
No, he's a zombie. Anything else you want to add?
I mean, I'll gush about Suspiria all day if I get the chance to talk about it. It's one of those things where the first film I love to death. I love Dario Argento in general, but the remake explores a lot of stuff that makes sense to explore with the dance school and everything going on, and even a couple of the side characters, and then also the Invisible Man, the recent 2020 version of it.
Oh yes, that movie was amazing.
What it does and for anyone that hasn't seen it, I'm not going to spoil anything with it. Don't look up anything. Just watch it. What it does and the path that it kind of takes is incredibly interesting, and those are awesome themes to explore in a movie. And it pulls it off really well. It doesn't. It's not stupid. It's great.
Yeah, the genre shakeup was definitely great, especially as they're coming from the coattails of the Dark Universe.
Mhm.
We were going to have a completely different Invisible Man take. So I'm happy that it flopped. So we actually have this amazing ass movie.
Mhm.
Yeah, we don't
That's all
talk
I'm gonna say
about
on it.
we don't talk about the Mummy reboot. Oh no, that's another topic for another day.
You could.
That's hard.
I mean,
God,
what like the '90s film be considered horror?
Wouldn't that be like horror adjacent, right?
Yeah, it's more
Yeah.
actiony.
Yeah,
It has
honestly,
the first
I
one.
don't know what to call it. More like a thriller, but I'm sure they call it horror based because honestly,
The first one has more horror elements compared to the sequels.
I do like the scarabs like eating people. I feel like that could scare somebody hypothetically, but still, it's like that's also another example of just a really, really bad reboot. Like you just it just fits in the territory. It's like, come on, man.
Tom Cruise, man.
Honestly, the scene where Emotep wakes up in the '90s one I thought was pretty scary when I was younger.
Yeah, his face peeling off. There's so much great stuff going on there. I missed the original.
When that was made, the Brendan Fraser one, was that supposed to be a reboot of the original? Like,
yeah,
it's a remake of a remake, I believe.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, they were Universal was trying to make a new one for a long time. I think they had directors like George Romero and Clive Barker on it, but they dropped.
I got a side
Kind of
question.
like having George Romero originally supposed to direct the Resident Evil movies.
Yeah, he was, and then he was, taking off the project. I mean, Paul did a good job for the first one, and that was it.
Like off topic, but I don't get why Capcom was like, "Oh, it's too close to the original. Let's not hire him."
Oh boy, how ironic is that?
Have you read the original script that got leaked for George's pitch? Oh my gosh, I actually like how true to the original it was.
There are some weird changes that are kind of odd, but like with Chris and Jill having a relationship.
That's not odd, man. That should be a thing.
That's pretty much almost
it's definitely
canon.
not. It's definitely not. They're best friends, BFF.
They're best friends with benefits.
Oh no!
Nobody in the Resident Evil universe has sex. That's already been confirmed.
Except for Wesker.
Chris and Jill have been hinted at numerous times. And then Capcom got cold feet and threw in fucking Carlos. Love Carlos, but he's a stand-in.
It only goes for hugs, not dicks.
Yeah, we'll see what Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City will turn out.
Anyway,
there was a side question I had, actually.
What's up?
Basically, what do you think about horror movie remakes in a remake, like remaking something?
Oh, so that happened with Halloween 2, actually. Rob Zombie redid literally pretty much the whole second movie within the first 15 minutes of Halloween 2, his version.
Yeah.
I heard like Night of the Living Dead has like fucking 6 or 7 remakes, and I never like went beyond just the one that was in color originally. So I did not know this.
I only seen like the '60s one and the one where Tom Savini directed.
Yeah, there's a lot more than that, believe me.
Yeah, probably because it's in the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say there's a list of them. I know. I went to the tech school in Pennsylvania, and Pittsburgh's college actually was in the middle of filming one of those remakes.
Sweet.
During me going and like interviewing for the college there. And let me just say, it is very much because it's in public domain. There are entire clubs across the world that are dedicated to remaking that movie, and that's it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's bizarre. So remake within the remake, so like making like basically a short version of.
No, remaking the previous film again, like after there's been a remake.
Oh, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Just look at those movies.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like
I mean, you've got Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's the original. You've got the one with Donald Sutherland, which is the best one personally. You've got Body Snatchers in the '90s, which is
Interesting.
yeah, it's got some neat stuff, but it's just kind of bleh. And then you've got The Invasion with Nicole Kidman. That was back in 2007. And then there was supposed to be another remake recently. I think they were going to try
They're
to
still
do it
working
again.
on it.
Yeah. So I mean, that movie gets remade. Like that movie gets remade once a decade at this point.
They remake the remake and then remake the remakes remake.
The trilogy of remakes.
Yeah.
The Triforce of remakeage.
It's pretty soon. Day of the Triffids is going to get a remake, and it's going to piggyback off of the Day of the Triffids remake of the original film. Like it's just another plant killing people movie. So
I'm waiting for a bold filmmaker to make, well, basically remake Troll 2. Like, I just want this. I need this in my life. Like, who's gonna do it? Come on.
Oh my god.
I hate to go back to the Ring movies, but as I just discovered by Googling, I mean, Ringu came out, and then there was a 1998 Ring, and then there was another version of the Ring in, what was it, 2001 when they first, like
2002.
2002, and then last year there was another remake. So I mean, that series just keeps getting remade and remade and remade. But that's one of those series is that every time they remake it, they seem to improve upon it. So if they're gonna keep improving on it, I don't care if they make a million remakes of it.
Yeah, that's how I feel. It's like Divik said, if it's good, it's good. So I guess we can move on to the final question.
Yes, we can. Okay. Is there a horror film franchise that you want to see redone in a unique way, rather Hollywood has done a reboot or already or not? I'm not sure if this will count or not though. But since Jason is in court right now fighting his legal battles, I want them to come out with that Friday the 13th in a winter setting.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
I feel like that was a great way. We don't first start. You don't see it in many horror movies in winter, but I think it'd be a great way to change up the formula because it always takes place in summer, and people can easily escape Jason inside woods, so if they're smart. But considering there won't be like a lot of snow depending on the climate and whatnot, right? I think it would be not only harder to escape from Jason though, but also give us more creative ways for Jason to get the kill.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least that would change it up somehow instead of another camp setting.
And plus,
I mean, it's still going to be in the camp though. Just the environmental
Just in the
stuff is going to be
winter.
different.
yeah.
I don't know.
And plus, it will look it will look good. Like considering the snow all over the ground, that would make some great visual detail on gore and blood. And I think that would look really good in a horror movie because you would be able to see everything at that point. Whether it's intestines, livers, stomachs, you're gonna see it all. So I think that was a good idea. It's just a shame that it got canceled before we saw it.
I mean,
I think I canceled because of the Rings or whatever that movie came out that bombed and pretty much killed that potential sequel.
Yeah, it sucked.
I agree. Also, that gives with ice and stuff. I love winter horror movies where they use ice as a weapon. I know that sounds so dumb. But as far as a horror movie I want to see remade, it's been remade in video game form through 3 video games. That's Parasite Eve.
Yeah.
I want to see them remake the Japanese movie from the 80s already.
The 80s?
Yeah, like 80s, early 90s, I think it was.
No, it was 90s. No, that movie you're talking about wasn't the 90s, which is based off the book more so than the games.
Yeah, and then the games were based off of the book and the movie.
Yeah, the games is technically a sequel series to the book.
Yeah, I would like to just either a sequel to that, which they've pitched numerous times, and again, it keeps getting canceled, or to see a remake of it. Because the movie is actually really good, and it does stand on its own separate from the games and the book very well, surprisingly. Usually, especially with something that's a book adaptation, generally they can fall flat a lot of times based on horror books, unless it's something Stephen King related. But they did a really good job with it, and I would love to see them finally put the remake out, or to put that sequel out that's been in development hell for a decade and a half. Almost two now.
I'd like to see the Nightmare series remade. Take a little bit of Sinister and a little bit of Pennywise, and have, you know, Robert Englund said it himself when he was saying that he was too old to be Freddy anymore. He said he doesn't have to be Freddy. Freddy could be anybody. So you could switch that up between movies, or, you know, within the movie itself, and you just keep the signature colors, the green and red. You keep the glove, and you make him like a dream demon, and he goes with kids to different Elm Streets. You know, kind of like what I was saying with Sinister, where the previous family takes it to the new town. You have one kid who survives at the end. His family is really worried. They move him to a new town, and then Freddy can start over.
That sounds like Silent Hills. Honestly, you go in different Silent Hill areas, but just replace that with Nightmare on Elm Street.
That'd be cool
I dig
though.
that.
I'm all for it. I dig it. Trying to.
I'd want to see Jaws get a remake. In all honesty, I think
Even if Spielberg
modern-wise,
said no.
Fuck it. I mean,
All right, there you go. That's
I
cool.
think that with the big dumb shark movies we've gotten recently, what is it, 47 Below, and there was another one that was really stupid.
The Meg?
No, The Meg was just funny. And I read that book, so I had to see that movie. There was another one where I think she was a surfer that was trapped out in a bay or something like that.
Oh, The Shallows.
Thank you.
Yeah, that
Shallows.
one.
So like sharks are always like evil and everything like that. And in Jaws, it's more like the shark is a force of nature rather than like inherently bad. I want to see a movie like that. I want to see that remade and have like this titan, this force of nature that people have to deal with. On that same page, and this is going to be borderline sacrilege because I love these movies to death. But I kind of want to see 28 weeks later or 28 days later kind of come back somehow. I mean, it's close to nearing 28 something.
Yeah.
That's
28 years from it.
That's
Honestly,
my answer.
Danny Boyle said he really wanted to make 28 months later for a long time now.
There's a trailer for it. There's a trailer for 28 months later that was back in 2008, 2009. And it makes me giggle every time, and then nothing ever happened with it. But like, I think revisiting that setting would just be kind of cool.
Okay, no lie though, like that sounds cool, but I have like a bad taste in my mouth after watching 28 Weeks. I did not like that movie at all.
Really?
I mean, I think it peaked after like the opening, and then it never lives up to that.
Yeah, the opening was
real
cool,
slow.
Yeah, the
but
opening's great.
the characters in that movie was so stupid.
I mean,
Like-
yeah, I'll give you that, but it's definitely one of those, like, I just enjoy that setting so much. I'm willing to excuse dumb decisions and
Like the setting may be cool, though, just there's certain
Stupid.
elements that I
Just-
can't.
I'm willing to excuse all the dumb and everything like that just for that particular setting.
Yeah.
Very guilty pleasure for me.
I mean, the first one is still the best in the series, although I wouldn't mind another film.
Yeah, so long as it's not like 2, I'm fine with it. Just
You know what?
do not do it.
Bring back 13 Ghosts. I want to see that like redone
Yeah.
somehow. That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
do another remake of it.
Oh yeah, like the only thing I remember is like all the DVD special features they had of it. The origin stories were cooler than the movie.
Yeah, didn't like I forgot his name. The guy who played Shaggy, he got his back broken.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah,
What?
Matthew Lillard. Yeah, he was in that movie, and a ghost picked him up and folded him like a cheap burrito, and that happened.
Oh no,
Yeah.
not Shaggy.
Yeah,
He gets backbreakered.
I love that movie.
Yo, Scooby's gonna be real sad when he finds out.
yeah.
But, yeah.
Did anyone see the original 13 Ghosts? Because it is worth a watch. It's a 50s movie, if I remember correctly.
Actually, I have not even seen 13 Ghosts like completely. I've seen
you
it
totally
in
should.
clips.
Oh, it's great.
That's another one where they just like tacked on the original and the Blu-ray release for the remake,
Mhm.
and I kind of like that whole process.
Yeah, that should be more common, man. Like, if you go and do a remake, show the original. That way, you can have both in one place. That'd be nice.
Yeah, House of
I guess they're afraid that if the movie sucks, they're just gonna shit on us with the old one.
I thought it was really cool that House of Wax and 13 Ghosts both did that and put it in the bonus features, which was really weird.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
I have another one. Have they done anything with Hellraiser at all?
Mm,
Not recently. I don't think so.
I think Clive
Sequels.
Barker said he wanted to do a new one for a long time now.
Yeah, maybe they should bring that back in some way. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say they should just bring back anything that's like been dormant for a really long time.
Oh wait, we had one back in 2018, but there's another one coming. I don't know when, but it's in production.
Please do not watch Judgment. It is not worthy of the series.
So it shall be judged based on his name.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else, guys?
Right now, I got nothing. Anyone else? What else you want to see brought back? I have one more random weird pick. I will say Pumpkinhead. I don't know why, but I just want to see a new Pumpkinhead movie. That's it.
Oh yeah, isn't it where that one guy is like connected to the monster or something?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that would be great. Actually,
there's another one too where I want to see again where it's like these puppets, but I can't recall the name of this movie. I think that's the one where they look all funny and weird and they look different. It's like a horror movie.
a couple other weird ones. Tales from the Hood. Want to see a new one of that?
they made
Because that movie's great. Listen, man, that movie's awesome. All right, I
think-
actually love that terrible movie.
Well, they did make 2 other sequels, but they weren't that good.
Oh, I never saw the 2 others. I only saw the first one. First one's just great stuff. And then if anybody ever saw Identity in 2003, I think maybe remaking that might actually be pretty good if you get the right guy. I don't know.
Oh wait, hold on. I know one. Bring back the Boogeyman series.
Yeah.
Boogeyman. I feel like I've heard of that before.
I was gonna say,
Oh.
wasn't there a second one not too many years ago?
There's 3.
Okay.
Yeah, the second one's the best one. Honestly, in my honest opinion. But it's more of like a slasher rather than supernatural. But that's all I'll say on it. But yeah, bring that back, man. It's been far too long.
Ooh,
3 killed the series.
Or High Tension. Oh, I would love another version.
Nah,
of
High
that.
Tension. Yep.
That's a nutty movie. Okay, I'll shut up because I can literally do this for hours.
Yeah, right. We gotta go. Well, I think that's all we can.
Oh, no, I'm not done
muster
yet.
up now.
I'm not done
no.
yet.
Oh no.
I had another one. I know they rebooted this or they put Hornswoggle in for some fucking reason, but a Leprechaun. Do another one.
No.
Yes. I want to see another one. I want to see someone killed with a goddamn pogo stick to the chest. That'll be entertaining.
Warwick
Fuck
Davis
that
said
midget.
No.
You know,
he said he would do
Hornswoggles-
another one once his kid's old enough to watch them.
He killed a woman by inflating her, and she got like triple E's, and I thought that was funny.
On the Leprechaun thing, as far as the Hornswoggle thing, Dylan Postal is still signed on for another 2 Leprechaun movies as of right now. So if we do get another one, he's unfortunately gonna still be there.
No,
They're gonna.
it just
Well, I'm surprised they haven't done like a crossover film with Leprechaun.
you mean
like
Leprechaun
maybe-
and like Child's Play?
I think at one point they wanted to do Leprechaun versus Candyman, but Tony Todd said no.
Yeah,
Hmm?
he's like, no. This.
Why am I fighting this like deceased imp? Like it makes no sense.
They also pitched Leprechaun and Puppet Master crossover at one point, which I'm so glad did not happen. I fucking hate the Puppet Master movies.
Oh wow.
Just
Interesting.
give us Jack Frost versus Leprechaun.
Oh, Jack Frost. Ah,
There have been
man.
so many crossover pitches for Leprechaun, and everybody just goes, no.
Yeah, it's a stupid idea. Like, who are you gonna put a freaking midget Leprechaun against, man? Like, honestly.
I think I have like
Van Helsing.
Okay.
yeah. I think I have like one more, and that's probably what the hell is that movie called? I'm trying to recall. It was on the tip of my tongue. See No Evil. Yes, I don't mind more slashers, and I think that would be fine. Obviously, they can't get Kane because he's too busy being the governor, and that can't happen. So,
But he said he was interested in coming back anyways, though.
yeah,
They'll
there's
probably
hope.
make time somehow.
Yeah, there's hope, but I would like to see another one. I mean, I think the first one was okay, and then the second one was bleh. But you know, you can always try a third time.
I was gonna say they're all right. I feel like something that might not be as bad of an idea as people have been saying it is maybe giving Glenn Jacobs a little bit of producer control, considering he is a horror nut. That might not be a bad idea.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you have people that actually are fans, then there's nothing wrong with a little bit of creative control. I know some fans can go way too overboard because I've seen it on Twitter, but there are some fans that produce like some really good content. I think it's another podcast for another day, but I have seen like people take Jason, even though he's in court, and they made this thing called like Never Hike Again, and it's a solid like indie horror movie with Jason going around killing people on YouTube. I think that was funny. They even took the snow idea as well, and they made that into a thing. That was great.
Yeah, for something low budget, it's impressive.
Yep. So I think they should probably give more control, see what happens.
We need Jason next remake.
I like Jason X. I'm one of the weirdos that liked it, but
it's one of the best ones.
Horror in space. That's another topic for another day.
Can we not talk about that movie at all?
No. We want to talk about it. Let's talk about the saving grace of Jason X, our senpai in space.
In space.
And he wakes up and he smells sex, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, he is. The moment he hears that moan, he's like, "What? Who's doing this?"
You know, one thing I really wish had happened was Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. That would have been cool.
Oh man.
Yeah. We were supposed to get a movie of that, right? But it turned into a comic series.
Yeah, I think Bruce Campbell said it didn't happen because they didn't like the idea of Ash winning.
Which it wasn't even what he pitched either. It was, if I remember right, when it was in production originally, it was Wes Craven who pitched that. So
really?
What a madman!
Why did the studio have such a problem with it?
Shut up. That's why. Okay, I think we're going to move. Going to end this now before we spark something else.
I was about to say I would not go to sleep tonight and just continue discussing all this. So
right, there's so much to talk about, but no, we gotta end it.
All right.
I need to eat.
That's fair enough.
All right. Okay, this is gonna get
during the podcast.
Yeah, Renegade, outro yourself.
All right, you can find me on YouTube at Renegade Operative. You can find me on Twitch at Renegade_Operative, and you can find me on Twitter at RenOperative_.
Leo Love, outro yourself.
Sir, if you don't pronounce it right, I am going to summon the R&B singer to smack you in the head.
What? Freaking. What are the names? Who's the guy that's in jail right now? Fuck. That his name escaped me.
Hell no, I'm not summoning R. Kelly.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the woman I'm named after. Thank you. My name is Aaliyah Love. You can find me at Aaliyah_Love on both Twitch and on the Tweeter Bird. You can also find me in the Discord, and you can find me on YouTube as Crystal Blues. Right now, still mainly uploading music. I actually haven't uploaded anything in months now, though. And then you can find me on Instagram at Princess of Pink Bliss _.
That's a lot of notes to take down. CuddleTom, outro yourself.
I'm not actually on anything, so don't look for me, especially if you're the cops.
Okay. We don't know him, officer. FBI, knock on his door, please.
All right,
He's got a pothead warrant out for his arrest.
where's the weed stash at? Come on.
Pop it up. It's got to at least be lemon cookies or something good.
Yeah.
Pop, show his stash, homie. All right, Divik, outro yourself.
Hey, Divik here, a shitpost extraordinaire over on Discord. Don't really share my socials or anything else because I don't use them.
You're a boomer.
Damn.
He is a proud
Damn right.
boomer.
But to be fair, not having a social isn't a bad thing.
No.
Less of a headache to deal with.
No, but he's still a boomer. In our
I'm gonna
eyes.
crack a Monster Zero Energy after this. You watch.
All right.
He's going to send us a message of him chugging an energy drink.
Oh, I hope so. Last but unfortunately, drill bit. Go ahead and outro yourself.
Yeah, you could find me on Twitter at Drovit777. That's really the only place I'm active at, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And he's on Tumblr the same.
No,
All
thanks.
right.
Leave his fan page on Tumblr alone.
Nah. All right, and last but not least, you can find me on Twitter at Immortal Brendo, Twitch at Sir Brendo, and yeah, get the fuck out of here. Thank you all for watching. I hope you or listening. I hope you have a great day, night, evening, whatever time of day's for you. And yeah, check on your bed. Jack Frost might be there.
All right, what is that horror movie where the snowman like hump people? Is that Jack Frost?
Yeah, that's Jack Frost.
That's Jack
Yeah,
Frost.
he was pounding down
Yeah.
the ground in a shower or some shit.
Isn't
Oh, yeah.
there a
Oh,
turkey
God, I
that
remember that scene. Oh,
didn't a turkey
yeah,
do it too?
It's the chick from America.
Oh yeah, Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, the movie that James A. Janice will not review.
Well, the third one,
Yeah.
which
Wow.
is technically the second film.